Welcome to our first Community Spotlight. Really exciting. We have Louise McQuaid here, who is independent, but also on the board recently of Stronsay Development Trust with her project, North Isles Wellbeing Project, with Andy McQuaid, Andy Harrod, funded by the Ideas Fund. McQuaid, Louise, take it away.
Lovely, thank you. So yes, this project, we finished our project just in February this year, which I was the project officer, and Andy Howard was our researcher, a geography wellbeing researcher from the University of Lancaster. It was the North Isles Natural Wellbeing Project, which I'm going to share with you how we went about this and some challenges and successes. I'm very fortunate now to be on the board of directors for Stronsay Development Trust. I also sit on the board for Homestart Orkney. My day job is with an enterprise education charity, Young Enterprise Scotland, embedding enterprise and skills in young people. I must say, because this is live streamed, I am making my day up next week. I'm also a business owner on Stronsay, entrepreneur. Like to think I'm a small-scale philanthropist, no longer a community lifeguard, but working towards being a swim coach. So if you've not ever been to one of these remote islands, that's very normal to have many different roles, many different hats. What it's not great for is something like this, because I can't fit it onto a nice slide. So if you do want to link up with me, scan the QR code, and you can drop me a message in any of those capacities. So where are we? If we have a look at the next slide, Lewis, thank you. This is us in Orkney. If you have no idea where Orkney is, go as far north as you can to the top of Scotland, and it's about 10 miles, I think, on the ferry, and that's mainland Orkney. So for the purposes of, as I'm going through this today, when I speak about mainland, I mean mainland Orkney. That's the biggest island of Orkney, not mainland Scotland. So if you're in Orkney, mainland Scotland is just south, anything south of Hoy, really. So the project there, you can see we are the North Isles. So we've got Stronsay, Edy, Sandy, Westray, Papa Westray, and North Ronaldsay. That was the remit of the project. And therein was the first challenge. This was a huge area. So geographically, we're quite close together. The furthest span is probably 15 miles as the crow flies from Stronsay to North Ronaldsay. However, you cannot island hop. It's impossible to do that without at least one overnight stay on the mainland. Realistically, it takes two to actually engage and do any level of work. So that was the first challenge. And the second challenge with that is we are considered the North Isles, sometimes the Outer Isles. We're ferry linked, so we have to get the ferry to get to mainland, to Kirkwall, which is the main town. And we're bundled together as we're all the North Isles. What that doesn't ever consider is the nuances between all of these islands and the differences that we have to navigate. And also with that, sometimes the political challenges that come with it. So really that was the first two challenges before we even started anything with this project. Looking back with hindsight, or to continue something like this, would be better placed as a centrally positioned or independent project. So being part of the Stronsay Development Trust, again, if you're not aware of development trusts and how they work, they have their own strategy and aims and what they want to achieve. Coming in as a development trust onto another island with your great ideas, as you can imagine, isn't always very well received. Sometimes it was, sometimes not. So there we have this third challenge of a centrally focused project. If we can have a look at the next slide. We have the Island Wellbeing Project, which is very well established in Orkney. That was my next challenge, that everyone thought that this project was this, and it's not. So this is a partnership project. It's very much about signposting and supporting people, very practically. And this was where the challenge was, that people thought that was my role. And we suddenly had to try and overcome people's misconceptions on what they actually thought my job was. Really what we wanted to do was engage and connect more cohesively across the islands and really embrace the nature of what we had there. So whether in summer we could be out and enjoying the beaches, and right through winter where it's fairly wild, to be honest. What we wanted to do was engage with communities and how they connect with nature and how we can use our natural resources to help promote well-being. It took a long time for anyone to actually understand this. From the board to other stakeholders and even community members. It took a long, long time. And even for me in the role, it took a long time for me to understand, what was I actually doing? Like, am I doing this? And I'd already spoken about this imposter syndrome. And a lot of times thinking,
I don't know that this is right. I'm not sure that this is what we're supposed to be doing. And the first thing I did really was to try and engage with the community on Stronsay so they understood what it was all about. So I had an event, the first event, a grand sum of 0 people turned up to it. Yeah, it's pretty disheartening. I even arranged for the bar to be open to try and bribe people along. Didn't work. So from that point, I'm like, right, how do we overcome this? And what they wanted really, it was about kind of how to win over trust that actually I'm here to support you and engage you. And what they wanted was action. Ultimately, it was action. So I started engaging with other programs that had already happened and were already available across the Isles. And this was kind of a proof that it wasn't going to be another 18-month consultation fatigue with endless groups and surveys and nothing actually happening. So it kind of went a bit of a top-down approach because I had to do something, but equally I had to engage with people. So on my island on Stronsay, I engaged with some organisations and projects, and really this was to utilise their progress, that they'd already done a lot of the legwork in engaging with communities. And actually what was really beneficial was they're a brilliant source, a secondary source of research. So they'd already had their research and we could pull into that. And actually listening to their input and the effect on their well-being coming out to the Isles was something we'd never considered before. So there was a couple of things we tapped into. You can see there we use Cycling UK. If no one has ever used them, they will have a development officer in your area. We had bike mechanics. We had things that overcome just geographical challenges where they came to us to repair people's bikes rather than an entire day spent, on a ferry to go to the town. We also work with North Ronaldsay Sheep Fest. That's the picture at the top. It just looks like a wall. It is just a wall. It's a dike. But it's been going for a long time. And this goes over summer where people volunteer and repair the dike. We also tapped into the North Ronaldsay Science Festival and Orkney Art Project. So these were things, I wasn't reinventing the wheel. I didn't even come up with the idea. I just tapped into them to come out. And then people started talking to me and coming up with what they wanted to do, what they wanted to try. So that taking action was the first step. So as we'd already chatted about some of the challenges, we're engaged in multiple islands. The great thing about having an external researcher was that some of the islands that didn't want to speak to me or get involved with me would engage with Andy. So between us, we kind of managed to balance this. And as well as we're all bundled together in this group of the North Isles, there were some commonalities. And actually, the biggest commonality were these greenhouses. We've all got them. Entirely different purposes. Some are to encourage community growing, a space just to be. Some actually grow it and sell it in their own shops, so a step towards sustainability and 0 food miles. So I kind of utilised these and found the common ground across all the islands. And this was the key to the project. Stealth well-being. This is what I started calling it. So it was about taking action, making things happen, and benefiting their well-being using what we had on our islands, our resources, without saying it was well-being. Now, if this had been extended, I would drop that from the project title, to be honest. I would not even mention the word. So all I did then, again, huge geographical reach, I tapped into a whole load of other projects and organisations where their primary aim was not to promote well-being. They had other aims. But my aim was, and what we knew from people engaging in these various activities, was that it was going to improve well-being through connecting with other people, being in different social groups, being outdoors, learning a new skill, giving something back. So if we can have a look at some of the things we did, there we go. So none of these were new. This was our greenhouse in Stronsay. You can see here that there was no level of planting going on. We did some candle making, we did some art, we engaged with Orkney International Science Festival and used the space as a workshop to create art. It was sustainable art where it was embedded with seeds, so we had that link with the Climate Festival as well. So really I was opening up people's minds to the space being used for something different. And not only that, the people that used the greenhouse, purely out of nosiness, would come in and see what we were doing. But that really helped because then they were on board and started coming up with their own ideas of what they wanted to do. I also engaged with Orkney Art Club, as I'd mentioned. Again, they'd already sought funding to deliver these workshops across the Isles. I just brought it to Stronsay. I didn't do anything different. I did engage with them and use their research across the other Isles. The great thing about this was opening up people's ideas about when we talk about engaging with nature, that I wasn't going to troop them around for a walk in the wind and the rain. You can engage with nature in other ways. So it was just opening their mind to that. The great thing about this particular group is that socially they would never normally be together. And yet for this, they were all in the same room enjoying the space. Off the back of this is where things developed, because people were really like, oh, we could try this, we can do this, we want to do this independently, could we get our own kit and have our own way of working with nature? And that's exactly what happened. So it was good. People started engaging and understanding what this was about. Another thing, this was a bit more outdoorsy, to be fair, but one of the real achievements was linking up with schools, not just on Stronsay, but across all the Isles. That was really key. And so my background in education, this is where this tapped into well-being, was linking up schools and education with community learning. Learning together, learning from each other. And this was a whole range of events. We had talks, we had a beach litter survey, so not just a beach clean, but actually surveying the litter and using that data as a citizen science project. We also did some seaweed recording, lots of things like this. So just bringing together schools and community members. Finally, we had a wildlife recording project, which was incredibly successful. This was a whole year of recording wildlife, and the key to this really was a community member with the skills and drive to take it forward. There were walks, there were external people like Orkney Field Club came for talks, but actually it was great because even those that were just sat in their house and took a picture from their window could put it on the group and go, I don't know what this is, but they all contributed. And it ended up in a great publication, not only to local records, but national records. There were new species found, again, another great citizen science project. And I've got some copies that you're going to see today and this evening at the Cayley. So really, my key to this was bring in other partner organisations. This was huge, trying to work across 6 islands, but even within your local communities, tap into what's already going on and tap into the partners that are not doing their project for well-being, but see where you can link it in and as a secondary source. Next one, and I will finish up. One of the great things in Orkney really is the heritage and archaeology. There's a great number of archaeological sites, and heritage is really important to the culture of Orkney. Tapping in with these were amazing, and actually the best thing I'd heard from the community archaeologists was interviewing them and the impact it has when they go out to the Isles on their own well-being. And what they recognised was that it's the engagement of being there regularly, and we heard this from Cycling UK as well. It takes about 12 months of regular engagement for people to really know, yeah, you're invested, this is what you're going to do. That's what it comes from the research. Anecdotally, in Orkney, they'll say it takes 3 winters before you're even accepted, and your kind of foot's just in the door after 3 harsh winters going, yeah, well, you've survived this long. But really, it was about kind of tapping into those other things and tapping into those links that people are interested in, and then us recognising how that was supporting well-being. Really, one of the key insights from this and to move forward and hopefully develop in the future was the difference between community engagement, community membership, and community participation. And the 3 things were very different for very different reasons. And it's being able to identify that, how we're engaging with communities, how people identify themselves as being a core member, the people that really drive things and move things forward, the community members that are part of the decision-making process. And then also balance that with participants. So there were lots of participants in these programs and activities that I did, but perhaps would not be considered membership for various reasons, whether personal reasons, or they don't align with that community ideology, the overall aims, or actually they are happy being peripheral participants. And like Lauren had mentioned earlier, that's one of the challenges, and what we're kind of looking at is that in an individual case by case, one size doesn't fit all. And it's how we address that everyone's needs are being met through that. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Louise. I'll grab that just in case it falls. I'm sure you have lots of questions, and I would encourage you to write those questions down, because we've got one more presentation, and then we're going to break it out into a bit of a kind of a question and answer, Q&A as well. So please make a note of them. I also know for this program, there's an incredible report and toolkit that's came out of it. Lots of hours have gone into that, so that as a resource is going to be very useful. I'm going to keep us moving. It's a session of Louises because we're going to also introduce Louise Senior and Maggie Wilkinson. Wilkinson? Up to date. Amazing. Second guess myself. Now these guys have, so Maggie, I remember our first conversation with the Ideas Fund. You were an independent community member in GEAR. And you were kind of like, can we apply for this? Is this something right for you? And we went through that process and we matched you with Louise. And I think it really was a incredible connection. Match made in heaven. Oh, there we go. So you're going to talk a little bit about this incredible project, which this is what this is hiding over here. So hopefully those of you online can see it as well. I should also, those of you online, please do ask your questions as well. I'll be checking these and hopefully we'll also filter that in. But without any further ado, are you happy to give a bit of framing and then we'll have a video? Maggie?
Thank you all for staying. That's a good start. I'm Maggie, I'm a Queen's nurse, and we ran our project from 2021 to 2022, and the Queen's nurse motto is be bold, be brave, and be a little bit bonkers. And we were kind of right in the middle of the pandemic, and I was working, and I've always maintained that the people that were able to work through the pandemic were the lucky ones. So I was working, but I was hearing lots of stories from parents struggling to help the children at home, but actually struggling more when they had to go back to try and socialise post-COVID. So I was thinking about what was keeping me brave, and arguably I live in the most beautiful place in the whole world, so the environment to me is really helpful. We all know that it's good for our mental health, our physical health to be outdoors, and I could really see, probably for the first time looking at my own well-being, that was what was keeping me strong. So I started to think, what could we do for the children? We started to hide painted stones, and they were going out as families to hunt for them. We thought we need to make this a little bit more exciting, so the Fireboch came alive, and if we had a bit more time, we're going to get you all to guess what a Fireboch is or draw a Fireboch, but maybe Louise wants to kind of show a Fireboch now. Do you want to show a Fireboch?
Can anybody guess what a Fireboch looks like? We'll show you a Fireboch.
This is our baby Fireboch. The Firebochs are about this size, and they do only live on GEAR, unfortunately, but they can swim, so there could be potential that they come to the mainland. The baby arrived at Christmas time, so you can imagine the excitement of a Christmas baby on GEAR. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and I don't know who was bravest, or more bonkers, whether it was Ideas Fund for actually being brave enough to take it on, because it did feel a bit of a mad project. And thankfully, Louise was just kind of as mad as the rest of us, so that's why I think it worked. The project stopped in 2022, but the concept of it continues and has continued to grow, and we've had folks come over and replicate it in their own communities, so that makes us feel very proud.
We'll show you the film,
Yeah.
and then we will tell you about some of the challenges and reflections we've had, but we'll sit down and let you watch the film.
We'll have to do it film-wise because I could talk all day about it. So.
The Fireboch family live in the woods on GEAR, although they enjoy travelling all around the island, loving the beauty of the landscapes, the wildlife, both on land and sea, the smells and the tastes, the colours and the changing seasons, the company of people and the quietness. Life isn't always easy though. The COVID pandemic and the lockdowns have been hard on everyone in many different ways. This is the story of one community who decided to find out what they could do to make life a little better for each other.
Hi, I'm Maggie Wilkinson. I'm one of the project leads on the Ogham project, which is our GEAR and Me, and I created the Fireboch story. Thankfully, the Ideas Fund, who look to support grassroots projects, accepted our application and have supported us in looking at how we can help with the well-being of young children and families on GEAR. It was a three-pronged approach, so we're looking at a story with a very soft touch to well-being. We created the Fur Box, and they travel around the island with a little shepherd's hut with nature interventions. And the third part of the project was looking at having a meeting place so that the children had somewhere of their own that they could identify with. And that has been our project for the last year. We're coming to a conclusion, and we've got some outcomes and some recommendations for the future, which we're really excited about taking forward. And it's been a really positive experience, and I have absolutely loved the project.
One of our biggest privileges for CJ and I was to meet Louise. And Louise has been our researcher and has come along the Fur Box journey with us, and she's been fabulous, and she's taught us so much. And part of the project was about how can communities like ours learn from research, and how can we all work together.
One of the really wonderful things about this project is how it's community grown. So it was a member of the local community who had the idea in the first place, and then they got the rest of the community on board to help develop and design the project further. So they've been consulted, they've been co-design workshops, carried on being involved through email, through Facebook, through Messenger, having chats in the shop. Beyond that, wider members of the community have also been involved, so everybody's tried to help. You know, the Fur Box have been gifted, the local hotel have helped with accommodation. Everybody's really got involved and on board with this and supported it to make it happen and to make it be successful.
I think during lockdown, I think some people did feel really stressed and isolated. I certainly did. But I think they miss out on a lot of opportunities to mix, to do sports, to do social activities and clubs. I think this has been fantastic, and it's given children a base, which is something really that they've not had before. So I think it's been really important.
Sometimes I feel like a bit like the odd one out, as I just sometimes feel like that. Like it says in the book, it feels like because he's a Fur Box, he doesn't fit in with all the people. And I sometimes feel like that. So we'll feel a bit like that sometimes, don't we?
It will do.
So one of the things that really pleased me about the project was the fact that it was a bit of a soft touch to well-being, and that was really what we were aiming for in the story and the contents of the hut. And parents really picked up on that, and they said, you know, if it was more obviously about mental health or about well-being, it might not have hooked their interest so much, they might not have engaged with it in such a way.
So today we've invited the local community to come for a picnic. We're just about to start the research phase of the Ogham project, where we get the chance to ask the adults and the children about how they feel about the interventions that have been put in place. And today was just a sort of celebration to have everybody together before that starts, and then once the research is over we'll have a lovely ceilidh and it'll be great. So this is just another chance and another event to get everybody together and socialise really.
It's been really well put together to make the families here feel listened to and heard, and I think it's really tailored to the needs of the children here.
And I think one of the things that really came through strongly in the interviews was how much people valued the opportunities that this project gave them to actually meet and socialise with each other.
It's nice to see them all playing and being kids and just not being on devices and actually getting out and having fun and being in nature, and yeah, I'm very much all for that kind of thing.
So coming as it did kind of on the heels of 2 years of being feeling really quite isolated through COVID, to actually have all these opportunities to get together, to meet, to plan the project, to celebrate the project, has really been at the heart of it. So it's really lovely, this kind of two-way thing that's going on, that it's the community that has made it happen, but in making it happen, it's built community.
And it's led for the children to be able to say things they want to do, like a Dark Skies with the Fur Box. They want a music festival. They want a map that they can follow the Fur Box around the island with, which is really great. And hopefully in the future we can be able to put that all together and make sure it works for them.
Everybody's taken the Fur Box to their hearts, and the children really feel as if the Fur Box are part of Gigha and have always been part of Gigha, and they've already got a real sense of identity here and a real sense of belonging, and the Fur Box are here and they've got that sense of belonging too. And I know that came through in the story, and I know again in the research some of the children talked about that, but it's a real strength, and that's a real positive. You know, I think if we're confident in where we belong, I think that's a real strength in well-being. So very pleased that the community embraced them so much, but really pleased that the children feel that they're theirs and they're part of their, I guess, part of their culture here now.
Hi everyone. We just really want to say a big thank you to everyone for coming. It was really important for CJ and I to be able to just say thank you, because we've had such a lot of support over the last year on our project, on the Open project. It was looking at how we could support people when they were going through really difficult times. This was to say thank you to everyone here in the community for all your support, from CJ, from Louise and from myself and from our little furry guys outside. We're really, really grateful to you. We just really want you to have a great night with these guys here, because we know they're brilliant, and it's such a long time since we've had a ceilidh. I don't know if we can all remember how to dance anymore, but they'll keep us right, won't you, with the steps and things. But thank you all for coming, and have a great night.
Okay, brilliant. So that sets the scene, and hopefully for those of you who've not been lucky enough to go to Gia, and me and Kirsty, I remember, had an incredible road trip. I missed the ceilidh, so I'm so glad we got it. That hopefully gives you a wee sense of it. So for the first question, I guess, the first one, let's talk about the challenges first. Like, what was the learning from the program, working together, the partnership? I'd love to hear.
I think one of the really practical challenges for us is that I was working with these guys from a distance, and the internet in Gia is atrocious. It's absolutely terrible. So we had lots of conversations where it wasn't just the case that we didn't know if we understood each other. I literally didn't know whether we'd even heard each other. And when we were going into this process of trying to think about the ethical dimensions of our project, kind of these really tricky, sensitive conversations, and you're going, Maggie, are you there? It was more so for me because I wasn't with you guys. You were all there together and could hear one another, and I was just at a loss to know where we were up to. And it was one of the wonderful things for me was coming at it as an independent researcher. I didn't have all those big institutional ethics processes to have to go through. We could really make the ethics tailored to the community, but when we couldn't even speak to each other sometimes, it was just that real structural issue that the Scottish Government just need to put in decent internet everywhere. I think that was the big challenge for me.
Yeah. And probably should have talked about CJ. CJ co-managed the project with myself. She's a ranger on Gia. And I think our challenges were probably the unknown, if you like, the unknown of how on earth we were going to think about sort of gleaning information from really young children, and the relief when we met Louise and she had 100,000 different ideas of how we were going to do this, but never once said, this is how we're going to do this. She completely enabled us as a community to come up with our own thoughts. She's crafty that way. She obviously planted lots of seeds and left it for us to run with it, and it was just the most amazing thing because we couldn't really think how we were ever going to get this information. So for us that was a challenge, but it was overcome very quickly by the introduction of Louise to the team.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask you about the joy, and I'm going to invite anyone in the room to ask a question as well. And I'm also going to come back to Louise and ask you probably the same question, actually, something about a challenge as well. But so that's giving you some thinking time. Is there a question in the room? Just Karen?
The question is going to come. I just feel very emotional. How do you think the project is?
I think we do.
That's really kind, thank you, yeah. We still well up, don't we?
I'm welling up.
It's very much an emotional project. I felt the same at the end. I thought, oh, I turned and said to my colleague, I was like, well, that's really emotional. And I think with the COVID, how it was born, it's really relevant to all of us, whether we've been there or not been there. And I just wondered, these are fabulous. And do you sort of commission somebody to make those? How are they born? Who does them? Who creates these and makes them?
I think that's probably my biggest joy, is the things that were given to us for nothing. And the fur box, they are about this height.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, that's a work colleague of mine made them for us. Another woman in the community just made all of these. So we've got a family of furry ones as well. She made us lots of hand puppets, so we've given them out to nurseries and things, different places. So the joy has been the community's support and the complete ownership of the project. And now the project's finished, and we've not met up for ages, so we talked a lot last night about how things have been over the last couple of years since the project has finished. And I think we were all kinder in COVID. I think there was a kindness, so it worried me slightly that bit would become a little bit tarnished as we've all moved on, but it absolutely hasn't. We still do the Ceilidh every year. It's in August the 3rd, if anybody wants to come, and we talk about our well-being. We talk about how we looked after each other then, and how we continue to look after each other, and we look after our children, and it's another emotional night. I'm not quite sure if it's the gin or whether it's the chat, but it's an emotional night. Anyway, that's probably my highlight, the community engagement of it all.
I think my joy, and I asked Louise specifically to ask me about the joy of this project because it has been so incredibly joyful, and I think there was this braveness from the Ideas Fund to just let us go with it, but also to work with the community and not have, these special outcomes that you needed, but to just go, well, I've got this really good idea and I think it might work, but I've got no idea, and everybody just go, okay, just do that. So we were able to be really creative with the way that we did research, and every child on the island got one of these little research tins, whether or not they wanted to take part in the research, because we really didn't want to make anybody feel left out. So they all got a little research tin, they all got a whole heap of challenges that they could do over the year, so that they'd know they were part of this research if they wanted to be. And we just had such fun, didn't we, doing the research? It was completely novel.
That's incredible. I am green, I'm not going to lie. And I've got sun cream on as well, so that makes it worse. It's beautiful. I'm going to invite Louise to come up. I'm very conscious of time. It's a beautiful, beautiful project. I'm so happy the Ceilidh still happens. You will obviously get a chance, for those of you in person, to ask further questions and ask more of the details and see more of these things. You're here for the Ceilidh as well, so there's plenty of time for that. But Louise, just probably the same question. What's been the joy? What's been the challenge?
So challenge, I'm not going to lie, I think the entire project was a challenge. I've said it several times this morning. I was never really sure of how much impact I was creating or if it was going in the right direction. And it was huge, like lots of the other projects you see, there was a very specific aim, it was very focused. Ours was much broader and much more geographically spread. So really it was just kind of that engagement. What we did do, I don't know if I mentioned it, but we did produce a project report at the end of this. We felt that wasn't in the original plan. I'm quite proud of that. That was an achievement. It was a huge piece of work, but it was a joy at the end of it. So we hope that that can then be a step in the right direction moving forward to support projects. So the Island Wellbeing Project that I mentioned, it's going to be restructuring. So hopefully the research we did can help to shape that. And now sitting on the board, I hope that that can kind of shape policy and strategy and move things in the right direction. The joy bits from it, I suppose people's interpretation and idea of engaging with nature. it's very hard to describe unless you have been to Orkney. It can be beautiful and yet wild and rugged, and it's how we embrace that. And I think it just posed more questions than anything, which was challenging. I'm happier sitting within that policy remit on the board than probably research. The research poses more questions, so we were certainly aware of the demographics of the participants in lots of these projects, whether it was art or cycling or being outdoors or growing or however we engage with them. But actually, interestingly, the majority of participants were incomers. They're not people from the Isles for various reasons. So that just posed more questions in terms of, we know there's a gap, but how do we then address that gap? So more questions, which I feel that I have that. I don't know that that's very useful or not, but it has kind of hopefully be part of shaping how we can address that in the future.
Amazing. Maybe one last, any final reflections from GIA? Anything else? We had the value of research. What next?
I think I have a learning point as a, researcher is just completely letting go of any sense of ego or what am I going to get out of this? What, publication? What are my outputs? It was just, being there for these guys, I think, is what made the partnership successful. That I didn't need to get anything out of this, and all the outputs like the film and the report that we did were for the families in GIA, and we might use them in the situations like this, but they were made for the people of GIA, and I think that helped a lot.
And I would say, if you're in a relationship and it's not working, don't flog a dead horse. Make sure your relationships are effective, because you can invest a huge amount of energy in the wrong relationship. So, and our it was a relationship that ultimately made this the success that it is. So, thank you.
And actually, you did tell me that you had a tip for others who wanted to do this work. Was that?
That would be
that
my
was the
tip.
That was the tip.
Actually, that is my number one tip. The relationship is the most important thing. Your community relationships, obviously, but your relationships as colleagues is so important. So it needs to be the right one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that beautiful note, can we give a massive round of applause to Louise, and Maggie? Thank you.
That's how it works, but I haven't.
It's great. It's going to be at the Cayley, so we've got time to play. That was really beautiful. I know there was more questions, so please do. You've got time, especially this afternoon. There's a lot more breakout time to chat as we go forward. Thank you for those joining online as well. I know there's a little bit of a lag, but we'll keep note of your questions and we'll pass them to the projects too. So you've got a couple of minutes to refresh your glasses and to head over. Thank you once again.